In this video, I'm going to talk about something that there should be way more of in the solo RPG space, and this is a solo RPG campaign setting book. Now, this is, I think, something new. I haven't seen something quite like this, so I'm going to first talk about what a solo RPG campaign setting book is like. Then I'm going to talk about what it's not like, and then I'm going to give an example. And if you know of anything like this, please let me know, because my goodness, do I want it. So, what am I talking about? A solo campaign setting book. What I'm talking about is a setting book similar to what you would get from a traditional RPG. Traditional RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons or a lot of OSR stuff, they have these awesome campaign setting books like Dolmenwood, for example, that go into detail about all sorts of things for a setting you can run for an RPG campaign. It's incredibly flavorful. It's fun just to read these things. It's like you're exploring them. But from a solo RPG perspective, there's one big problem, which leads to two smaller problems. And the big problem is that these setting books are written for a dungeon master's, for use of a dungeon master. They are written specifically for a dungeon master in mind, so a dungeon master can read through them, get all the relevant information they need to know up front, and then they can run those settings for their groups in an RPG. If you're playing solo, this presents two problems. The first problem is that these books rely on the dungeon master to unpack the setting and present it to the players. I don't know about all of you, but for me, when I'm playing solo, I want a little bit more direction. I want a little bit more guidelines with the rules. So if I'm playing a solo RPG in a setting for a campaign, I don't have to create everything as if I'm the dungeon master. I do that a lot. That's what a lot of solo role players do. But wouldn't it be great if there was something that gave you a little more guidance for a setting book? I'll talk a little bit more about what that might look like near the end of this video. But the second problem with a traditional RPG campaign setting guide or setting book is that all of the secrets are up front. Again, it's written for a dungeon master in mind, so they put the most important information up front, which oftentimes happens to be the most secretive stuff, because they want the dungeon masters to know, hey, what is this kind of storyline getting at? And they know it up front, and then they can build everything up to that moment. If you're trying to play a campaign or a setting guide solo, you don't want to see that stuff. You want to explore that through the gameplay, and that is why that is the problem with traditional campaign setting guides and playing them solo, is they're not presented in a manner to play solo. Now, there are a lot of solo books that are full adventures or almost like sandbox campaigns that you can play solo, but these are almost exactly like, these are almost all adventure books. So a great example is the Alone Against Nyarlathotep for Call of Cthulhu. I'm actually playing that right now behind me, and it is absolutely spectacular. I'm going to do a review video on it at some point, because it's possibly the best solo RPG thing I've ever played, but it is full on a game book, which means you are like choose your own adventure, and that's a little misleading. This video isn't about the Alone Against Nyarlathotep. It is a sandbox, but it's presented in game book format. So you're going to read an entry, you're going to select from options, and then go to the next entry based on your selection. It's sandbox because a lot of the things that you get to do is, for example, you get to explore a house. You can go to any room in the house, but in doing so, you're going to be selecting the entry for that particular room, and then when you get to the room, your only choices are the entries or the choices listed on the entry. And what I'm looking for is something that's like a more traditional campaign setting guide, where you have a map, you have different entries about the different parts of the map, you have maybe some background information, but a setting guide written for a solo RPG player. So it is something that's more freeform for an than an adventure guide or adventure book. So you're not limited to just the choices on the page. You can still do that free form role playing and try and figure out how best to manage these gray areas. However, it's written so that you can explore it through solo play. This is something that I really, really want, and I really haven't seen anything quite like this. Like I said, there's tons of incredible, awesome setting guides for traditional role-playing games, but they're presented for dungeon masters, they're written for dungeon masters, and a lot of them, like Dolmenwood, honestly, but even something like Forbidden Lands, which solos very well, you just end up finding out things that you don't want to find out right away. You want to find those out through gameplay. You don't want to find those out when you're reading the entry about the city. And it's understandable why things are written that way, why the secrets and most important information is up front. But from a solo perspective, wouldn't it be nice to have a full-on, flavorful campaign setting guide that is written for the solo role player in mind? Now, here's a quick example, because this is tough to illustrate, and I want to make sure I'm getting my point across. Let's pretend that together we're going to make a solo RPG campaign setting. We'll call it the Village of Oakhurst. All right. So what this might be is it's a book, and the first page might be a quick map of the Village of Oakhurst. Small village. You got like a tavern. You got a church. You got like maybe some, I don't want to say slums, but like a more dirty, danky part of town where the Thieves Guild hangs out. Outside the village is a forest. Okay, so let's say we're doing that. So as a solo role player, you might say, okay, I'm just going to sit down and read through this a little bit. So each one of these places has a one-page entry that just describes a little bit about the location. The forest is mysterious. Yes, there's resources. Hunters do go in, but you better have some experience in ranging or in hunting or something like that, or else you might get caught up. The wolves are particularly bad. The Thieves Guild, for example, is maybe down on their luck. They're not doing very well. The Village of Oakhurst is not very big. They used to have a lucrative trade until the church moved in. And the church is maybe, I don't know, following a god of luck or something like that. And they actually are in direct competition with the Thieves Guild because they make their own luck or something like that, right? So you have these different entries, which gives you a little bit of background information about the different parts of the map. But this background information is stuff that your character would know only. It doesn't get into anything else. So maybe while reading this solo campaign setting, you start thinking to yourself, wow, wouldn't it be fun if I ran a cleric that was kind of like a thief? Or maybe I ran a thief who joined the church instead of joining the Thieves Guild. So that's the thing that you want to do. Now, you go and talk and on the church entry page, maybe it talks about, if you ally with the church, here's how to do it, and maybe here's the benefits you get. And here also is how to join the church, but it doesn't tell you about what happens after you join the church, right? That is now secret information. So if I have a thief who wants to join the church because they make their own luck, I decide, okay, what's it going to take to join the church? And the church has a weird initiation where you have to spend one night in the forest. If you can prove that you've done that, then you get to join the church. That's odd. Okay, I roll up my character, I make my character because this is how I want to start playing, right? That's different than an adventure book, which leads you on a path to start playing. You have full autonomy here. So I roll up a thief and decide, okay, here's where I want to start playing with the church. And my first action in the game is then to go spend some time in the woods. I go back to the woods entry, and maybe there's a random table for random encounters and some other mechanics around foraging or hunting or getting lost and things like that. So I go ahead and roll on the random encounters table, and this would lead to a separate section of the campaign guide where it might have entries for the different monsters that are included. Now, these entries wouldn't necessarily be stat blocks because I'm a huge fan of system agnostic books, but rather it would tell you kind of what would happen after interacting with these different animals. So for example, the wolf example, there's wolves all over. If you defeat them, great. If you don't defeat them and you have to run away, maybe the wolves have caught scent of a prey that they want to eat. And the next time you experience wolves, they come back in greater numbers. Or maybe it's more likely you encounter wolves and more entries on the table become wolf entries until you finally will eventually meet them again or something like that. But maybe it's a 2d6 table, and maybe the least likely result is a forest secrets result. And you don't get to know what that is until you roll a 2 when you're spending a night in the forest, and then you go to a different section of the book where it says forest secrets, and then maybe there's another dice roll and you figure out what the forest secrets are about. At that point, maybe the experience becomes a little bit more like a game book because you don't want to learn too much, and so it leads you on kind of like a breadcrumb trail about different parts of the forest and the different secrets hidden within the forest. Anyways, my character ends up spending the night in the forest. They go back to the church. They prove they've spent the night in the forest. And the church says, hey, good job. You are now initiate of the church. I go to a new section of the book that talks about church initiation. It shows me how I rise up the ranks, etc. And it tells me what the goal of the church is. And the goal of the church is maybe to find the quantum jewel. At this point, my character decides to follow up rumors around town to try and figure out where the quantum jewel is. Maybe they go to the tavern. Maybe there's a rumors list that they can roll on. Maybe they find some rumors and maybe they go to a location, and lo and behold, there's the quantum jewel, right? So then eventually my character gets that quantum jewel back to the church. They return to the church. That leads me to another secret entry within this campaign setting guide, and my character finds out that in fact this church is not following the god of luck, but instead is run by a demon, and the demon needed a quantum jewel to finish some, I don't know, ritual that is going to bring a gate from hell onto this city of Oakhurst. This is the type of thing that I'm talking about. Got a little bit apocalyptic there at the end, but I would love something like this, a book that you can read from page to page and interact with the different parts of the setting that you want, but it includes mechanics and gameplay, ways to play an RPG within the book that are directed for a solo player, and secrets that act more like a game book, where then you are given led to different entries where you learn and explore and discover information about the setting as you play within it. That's what I want. That's what I think solo RPGs need more of. Please let me know in the comments below if you know anything like this. This is kind of becoming like my white whale, something that I want so badly. So let me know if you know anything like this. I would love to see it. And let me know if you think this is a good idea. Maybe I have a blind spot somewhere. Maybe I'm thinking this is going to be awesome, but in fact, it's been tried and it has not gone well. Let me know in the comments if you know of anything like it, or it's been tried and I'm unaware of that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.